I've been getting a lot of really great questions on my videos and comments, so today I wanted to go through some of them and answer the questions you guys have been asking. The reason being, some of these are really great questions, and I've been getting the same question multiple times, so I thought I would just make it into a video, and not everybody has the chance to go through comments on videos or on other videos, so let's go ahead and go through some of these questions, and please bear with me, I'm starting to get sick. I'm on my emergency medicine rotation, and it seems like everybody coming in has influenza B or COVID. So anyway, let's just get started. The first question is, do you feel like doing the CMS forms twice made a difference in your score or completing UWorld Incorrects? It's hard to know which one made the bigger difference since I only took the exam once and I did both, so it's hard to tease apart that. I do know that after I did my UWorld Incorrects, I was initially scoring worse on my NBME exams. So I guess I think they both hold value, but if I had to choose, I would choose the CMS forms and the NBME full-length content over UWorld Incorrects. But if you have time for both, I'd say do the UWorld Incorrects earlier on and then the CMS and full-length NBMEs later on. Somebody asked, what was your first pass UWorld percentage, if you don't mind me asking? I got about 61% correct on my first pass. I was using UWorld to learn all of the content. I didn't do any content review prior to doing questions, so all of my knowledge for step 2 basically came from UWorld. So I wouldn't expect it to be like a high score if you're using it to learn primarily. Someone asked, did you do the offline NBME full forms twice? I didn't do any of the full forms twice. I only got through the full forms once. I did all of the clinical mastery series or the CMS forms twice. If I could though, I would have done the full length exams twice. And if you can find offline content, great. It can be pretty hard to find. Do you mind sharing your spreadsheet or schedule? Yes. If you go onto my channel and then go to the community tab, you'll see that I have my spreadsheet posted, and it's just like an Excel, like a screenshot of my Excel document that I use to track all of my CMS forms progress and the scores that I got. Okay, as far as keeping track of incorrect questions, did I use a document in Word or a UWorld notebook? So as far as keeping track of incorrect questions, I wrote them down, and I only wrote down questions that I got incorrect twice. So if I got a question wrong on the first pass through the material, I didn't write it down. I would only write it down if I got it wrong for the second time. I would also write down questions though if I got it correct initially and then got it incorrect if there was something going on there and I needed to write it down. If it was just like a little mistake, then I wouldn't. Someone asked, how long are your classes in med school? How long are you spending in school per day? And how are you making money in med school? So in the first couple of years of med school, classes were about 1 to 2 hours each. I would say on average, I was spending 6 hours in classes per week and about 2 hours in exams per week. Or 6 hours of classes per day each week. Did I say that right? I don't know. My brain is foggy. Average 6 hours per day in classes first and second year. In third year, it really depends on whatever rotation you're on and how long the days are. I'm currently on emergency medicine. Those are 12-hour days. How are you making money in med school? So I take out student loans, and there is living expenses that you can take out as well. They base the amount that you can get based on how expensive it is to live in the area that you're currently living in. I think I get about like $30K-ish a year for living expenses. And then my husband works, which honestly helps a ton if you have help from family or a working spouse. Okay, did the rapid review help you in any way during the exam? I felt like it did. I felt like I got some questions from the rapid review on my actual exam. This is at the end of the First Aid for USMLE Step 1 book. You can go through, I don't know how many pages it is. My book is currently in storage, along with most of my other things. But I feel like some of that stuff came up during the actual exam. Do I recommend Physeo for step 2? I personally never used Physeo, so I don't really have anything to say about it. If it seems like it's helping you and it seems worthwhile, by all means, go for it. But I personally don't know anything really about it. Are you an IMG? No, I am a USDO student. Did you reset your UWorld for brand new questions? I did not reset my UWorld. I only did one pass of my UWorld questions, and then I went through my incorrect questions again. So I did not reset my UWorld questions. Which CMS forms and NBMEs did you do? So if you go to my community tab, it'll say which of the CMS forms and NBMEs that I did. And I did all of them that were on the NBME website. And then I also found like random content offline as well, but not a lot because it requires too much work finding it all. Okay, somebody's comparing themselves to people that they're studying around. Okay, people around them are studying 14 to 16 hours a day, and they're not even able to study 12 hours. Can I help them get back on track? This is a tough one. Try not to compare yourself to others or how long other people are studying. When people say they're studying 14 to 16 hours, they're probably not studying all of that time. During dedicated, I kind of tried to pay attention to how much I was actually studying in a day. And on a day that I thought I was studying 12 hours a day, I studied about 7 hours, actually studied about seven of those hours. So between all of the breaks and everything, it's just, you're not able to get up to that many hours. So don't be demoralized. Don't feel bad. Try not to compare yourself to others. And it's not really so much the time as it is the quality. Somebody could be spending 16 hours studying, but if you're studying the wrong thing, that's not going to be very helpful. So as long as you're studying the appropriate material, just, keep your eyes on the road and keep doing what you're doing and try. It's so hard, but try not to compare yourself to other people and their path. Did you do any content review or just questions? Just questions. At least until the end when I was reviewing my own material that I had written down about incorrect questions. I have to okay, there we go. Okay, please video on recommended resources besides UWorld. I'm confused. Should I use Step Up to Medicine, Amboss, etc.? Thanks. I did recently make a video about all the resources that I used. Sue, go check that out if you're interested. Did you use ANKI at all during dedicated? Nope, I didn't use ANKI at all during dedicated. I only used ANKI, and it was the Cheesy Dorian deck. I initially started using Zonky, but then I switched to Cheesy Dorian because one of my friends was recommending that one was a little bit better of a deck. So I would use that sort of towards the beginning of each of my rotations. Like if I was on family medicine, I would do that kind of towards the beginning of the rotation and then do questions throughout the rest of the rotation. But I did not go through I didn't go through the flashcards again after that initial time through. When going through my incorrects in UWorld, how do I know when the incorrect is completed? Does the number of my incorrects go down from 1,200 to 900? I just don't know how many incorrects I have left. The incorrects are super frustrating to go through because if you get the question wrong again and again and again, it will stay in your incorrects. So the progress can go down the progress is slow. And also you'll just keep getting repeat questions and it's not really worth reading through the question again because you've already done it multiple times. Anyway, I kind of gave up at some point. I don't know exactly how many questions I had left in my incorrects before I gave up, but just do your best. And once you start seeing a lot of repeats to where it doesn't make a lot of sense to continue on with your incorrects, you can probably just stop going through them. Okay, are some of the CMS forms harder than others? Like Form 8 of PEDS is completely harder than 7. And then how long does it take me to review a CMS form or a UWorld block? Okay, in my experience, yeah, some of the forms are harder than the others. Same with the NBME full-length exams. Some of them are harder than the others. And I also think this matters in terms of your specific strengths. So for me, my highest shelf scores were medicine and family medicine. And I don't remember what else. Anyway, you are going to have specific strengths in certain areas. Maybe you're interested in going into OBGYN, so some forms will have more OBGYN content by percentage. So it really depends, but I personally do think some of the forms are harder than others, but this could just be due to inherent strengths and weaknesses that we all have. But you'll see there really wasn't any pattern. If you check out my community tab with like all of the scores that I put on my practice forms, you'll see that there wasn't really a pattern. As I went through them, I didn't tend to get really better scores or anything. It's just like luck of the draw. And if you are learning what you're studying, that's what's most important. So even if you're scoring worse, if you're taking that time to really understand the content and improve, that's what really matters. How long did it take you to review a CMS form or UWorld block? I don't know, like it took about 90 to 100 minutes for a 50 question block to actually take it. And I'd say maybe 2.5 to 3 times that to actually review the block in depth. Sometimes longer if I was having like a hard time focusing or if I got a lot of questions wrong. How long was your dedicated period? About 5.5 weeks. Do you do Amboss? No, I didn't do any Amboss QBank questions. I still have access to the Amboss library. I think it's about $10 a month. You can look things up, and I found that to be really useful when I was going throughout the year. So if I got a question wrong, or if I just wanted to review a certain disease or concept, I could just look that up in the Amboss library, and I thought that was a good use of $10. Do you think rotations were helpful for scoring high? I would have to say the majority of the time, my rotations weren't really all that helpful for scoring high on step 2. I would say the majority of my success on step 2 is related to doing a ton of practice questions. Rotations can be helpful, but I mean, it's not like a patient comes in and they're a practice question. Like the test is practice questions. It isn't patient encounters. So as much as I would like rotations to be really helpful, they're like mildly helpful. And when attendings or residents are pimping you, it's helpful information to know, but I don't necessarily find it to be all that helpful for practice questions or for board exams. How do you practice questions from content you haven't covered yet? For content I haven't covered yet, I just do questions. So I use the questions to actually learn the content. If you prefer to do like content review prior to doing questions, that's fine too. It's up to you. Someone asked, did you honor all your rotations? No, I did not honor all of my rotations. I honored some of them. The issue with rotations and evaluations is that it is subjective, and it really depends on whatever medical school you're going to, on what the criteria are for honoring a rotation. For my school, you have to get all of everything basically perfect in order for you to honor it, in addition to scoring a certain score on the shelf exams. It can be really hard to do, and I mean, I tried not to get too tied up in this because, you know, you're just having a random like attending who is evaluating you, and it's a very subjective process. So rather than getting too tied up in knots about honoring rotations, I just focused on what I could do, which was doing well on step 2 and studying outside of my rotations, and then just doing the best that I could in terms of learning from my patients and trying to develop patient care skills. But that's just like the best that I could do. Someone said, OMG, I can't agree to your views more. Melman is so underrated. Melman Medical, highly recommend him. Yes, he is great. Can you please make a video of how you approach different types of questions on the exam? Yes, I'm going to make a video on how I approach different questions on the exam. One feature I used a lot was a strike-through feature. I didn't really highlight a lot of things. I would flag a lot of questions. So if I wasn't sure about a question, like I wasn't 100% positive, I would flag that question and I would go back to those at the end. And if there's a question that I really didn't know, but I felt like if I had more time to do, I would flag that. Like if I felt like if I had more time to do that question, I might be able to get it right. I would flag that question and then I would write the number of that question on my laminated piece of laminated paper. I would write down the number of that question. And then I would prioritize going back to that question initially when I went back through my flagged questions at the end of a block if I had remaining time. That was kind of my biggest thing. And then if I didn't know a question, I would just move forward. Like, no use spending or wasting a bunch of time on a question I don't know. I need to focus on all of the questions that I could potentially get right. So I would just move on. But I can make a more dedicated video for that. Did you notice CMS forms questions repeatedly on exam or UWorld question style more? I definitely noticed CMS form questions on the actual exam. Honestly, I felt like there were repeats, but I don't think there were, but it felt so reminiscent of the CMS material, like crazy. I mean, maybe they were just like jumbling some things around and talking about a different disease state, but man, oh man, those CMS forms really help. Could you please share the core textbooks and shorter guide review books you used to prepare for the USMLE Step 2 CK? I didn't really use any textbooks or guide or review books. I mostly just focused on Q banks. And then towards the end, I kind of used the first aid for USMLE Step 1. I used that a little bit towards the end. Okay, I'm studying for Step 2, but the most difficult thing for me is to come back to track once I engage in other daily chores. Okay, it's hard for them to get back onto track. Okay, this is super common. I often use cleaning to procrastinate things when I'm supposed to be studying or just picking things up and stuff. I would set timers okay, I have 10 minutes to go take a break and clean and stuff. And then once that timer goes off, I need to just get back to work. That sort of helped me keep track of time, making sure I wasn't spending too much time on my break. And then I would also maybe make something that I was looking forward to afterwards. So I would, maybe make a coffee or a tea, and that was sort of my cue to get back to work. If I really needed a break, if I really couldn't drag myself back to the desk, I would actually take a really good break and actually go do something that I wanted to be doing. I wouldn't force myself to study if I didn't feel like studying, because that usually ends up being unproductive for me. So I would just go take a good break, go for a run, go to the gym, etc. It's definitely a marathon. Someone said, it's impossible to score 270 without recalls. This is cheating. I'm going to take that as a compliment. I had to look up what recalls is. That's basically when you get questions from people who have taken the exam before you. Yeah. Let's see here. That would actually require having, I think, a lot of friends that would be willing to share the answers with you as well. And then I think if you're able to remember all of the questions that somebody gave you, that's impressive in and of itself. But no, I didn't do that. Did you find the CMS forms to be up to date? Yeah, I would say all of the CMS forms that I purchased from the NBME, which is all of them that they had on their website, they seem to be up to date to me. Sometimes with some of the guidelines, I think that's one of the issues, like the U.S. Preventative Task Service Force, something like that, USPSTF. Sometimes that would be what people I think would complain of being out of date. So just reference that website and make sure that you're up to date on the guidelines for that. Somebody said, Alyssa, congrats on the great score. However, I would say it is not just the resources. You're a great student as well. For example, if I were to go to the gym and ask a bodybuilder what protein shake he uses, I will get an answer. It is not just what he eats. There are other factors as well. Great video. Yes, that's a really great point. There are other factors as well. I think that it is very important to sort of eliminate some of those other factors as well, like luck. I mean, if you do a ton of practice questions, there will just be less surprises on the exam day, and the success of your experience on the exam will be less due to luck. For instance, I focused on, doing all of my practice questions, and I noticed that surgery was kind of one of the weaker areas for me, and I knew that surgery was a big portion of the actual exam. I almost knocked down my camera. Anyway, so I focused on surgery and I focused on making sure I really learned that stuff. Same with OB-GYN. That content I just didn't really like as much. So I had to really push myself to really learn that content. If I were to have an exam that was really heavy in those areas and I hadn't done that, I probably would have scored worse. So I really think it is about doing lots and lots of questions and learning the content really well. So that way other factors don't play as big of a role, such as luck or just being a great student. I mean, I am a good student. I work hard. I study hard, etc. You have to put in the time. And like there are a lot of people who could probably score as good or better than me with studying a lot less. There are just personal factors as well. I did what I needed to do to score the score that I got, which meant just doing a lot of practice questions. Let's see here. I wanted to ask, how much do you feel if CMS NBME is I already answered that. What part should we focus on for the second pass of CMS forms or NBMEs? Okay. So for my second pass through the CMS forms and the NBMEs, I mean, I just went through the questions again. So initially when I took the exam for the first time, I would take screenshots of every single question, because when you actually like go through the exam, the NBME will highlight the correct answer. So I just like screenshotted everything. That way, when I went through for the second time, it would be like fresh without my previous like ideas of what the answer was or knowing what the correct answer is. Anyhow, so when I went through for the second time, I just did the answer, like I just did the questions again. But one thing I did sort of differently is I'd really focus on what they were trying to talk about, like what disease they were bringing up. I wouldn't read the answers initially. I would just like read the last sentence, then I would read the actual stem, really try to figure out what's going on and try to have an idea of the answer before I even looked at the answer choices. That way I was a little bit less biased when I looked at the answer choices. I thought this worked out really well for me. And then I also made sure when I was going through each of these questions for each of the answers, if it was a different disease, I would make sure I knew with each of those diseases how, like the signs and symptoms, how they would present, how to diagnose, how to treat, and any like common complications with that disease. So for every single question, I made sure that I knew how to manage that condition. I feel like that's good because like with each question, you're getting multiple, reviews of multiple diseases. So that is something to keep in mind. Can you make a video on test taking skills? Absolutely, I will do that. Okay, is ChatGPT reliable when it comes to answers? I did notice sometimes chat was wrong when, let's say I was going through, I don't know what that, okay, I think somebody's like working, somebody's drilling next to us here. Anyway, I felt like sometimes it was wrong, and usually when it was wrong, I had a feeling it was wrong, and I would probe it further. Most of the time, I used chat to clarify questions that I didn't understand. I would have like the question and the answers, and it already knew what the correct answer was, and then I would be like, why is A the correct answer here? That's when I found it was most helpful for me, but anyway. I think it's actually getting my video is getting too long. Let's call it for this video, and I can keep going in another video. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.